Your role is no longer cost-effective for our operational model. That is what they told me, after 25 years of keeping the power on. My name is Marcus Tate, 58 years old, chief engineer at River Valley Power Cooperative in Springfield, Missouri. For a quarter century, I would oversee the electrical grid for half the county hospitals, schools, factories, homes. No major outages, no fatalities, not a single light flickered on my watch unless it was meant to. My reward: a severance packet, a non-disclosure agreement, and a security escort to the parking lot, like I was some kind of thief. It was a Tuesday morning, gray and damp, when Carla from HR and Nathan Brooks, the new operations wipe, called me into the boardroom. Nathan, 6 months on the job, barely looked up from his tablet, his fingers swiping through spreadsheets like they held the secrets of the universe. Marcus, we are impounding our workforce, he said, sliding a folder across the polished table. Your position has been consolidated. Details are inside. I opened it. 2 weeks severance for 25 years. A non-disclosure agreement that felt more like a gag order. A vague promise of transition support. The company logo at the top was new, some sleek redesign they would rolled out last year without asking anyone who actually worked the grid. 25 years, I said, my voice steady but heady, staring at the folder. No blackouts. No injuries. You are sure about this? Nathan tapped his pen, the sound like a metronome counting down my career. It is a business decision. Nothing personal. Carla, sitting next to him, avoided my eyes, pretending to scribble notes on her legal pad. Your replacement starts tomorrow, she added, her tone flat, like she was reading a lunch menu. Evan Carter, fresh from grad school. He's got big ideas for modernization. I closed the folder, the paper crinkling in my hands. Good luck with that, I said, and stood. Nathan, his eyes flicked up briefly, then back to his tablet. Carla offered a tight smile that did not reach her eyes. I walked out, feeling the weight of the room lift, but a new weight settle in my chest. That night, I sat in my garage, the overhead light casting shadows over the toolbox I would used since my first day at River Valley. It was scarred, dented, but every tool inside was sharp and ready, just like me. My wife, Linda, had passed 3 years ago from breast cancer, and our daughter, Sarah, was teaching high school in Chicago. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that amplifies thoughts you would rather not hear. I called my old friend Ray, a retired lineman who had worked under me for 15 years. They let me go, I told him, my voice low. Replaced me with some kid who probably thinks a substation is an app. Ray cursed, long and colorful. You gonna raise hell? He asked. No, I said, staring at my work boots caked with substation dust that never quite washed out. But they will figure out what they lost soon enough. I hung up and ran my thumb over the handle of my favorite wrench, the one Linda had engraved with my initials for our 10th anniversary. 25 years of keeping the lights on, and it ended with a folder and a handshake. I started at River Valley in my late 20s, fresh out of trade school, wiring transformers, and learning the grid is pulse. I would grown up in Springfield, son of a mechanic, who taught me to respect machines and the people who depend on them. By 35, I was a supervisor. By 40, chief engineer. I knew every substation by its hum, could spot a failing relay before the alarms tripped, could reroute power during an ice storm without a single flicker. I would train crews to do the same, built a system where trust flowed both ways between me and the grid, me and my team. Linda used to joke, I cared more about the grid than our own wiring. You're out there saving the world, Marcus, she would say, half teasing, half proud. Maybe she was right. After she passed, I buried myself in work. Weekends, holidays, 3 a.m. calls when lightning fried a circuit. The grid was my second home, and my crew was family. The company changed hands in 2018. A private equity firm, Horizon Capital, bought us out. They promised stability, but brought cuts instead. Cheaper parts from overseas, suppliers, fewer maintenance crews, longer intervals between inspections. I fought for my team, but the higher-ups started biasing me. When Nathan Brooks arrived, he pushed smart grid tech sensors and algorithm to optimize operations. He called it the future. I called it a gamble. The grid is not just numbers, I told him at a staff meeting. It is equipment, people, instincts. He smiled thinly, like I was some dinosaur who did not get it. Data-driven efficiency is the future, Marcus, he said, and moved on to the next agenda item. The warning signs piled up. Nathan ignored my maintenance requests, slashed training budgets, and hired consultants who had never touched a circuit breaker. My lead technician, Denise, pulled me aside one day. "This guy is gonna burn us out," she said, her eyes tired but sharp. He asked if we could skip grounding checks to save time. I told her we would manage, but I started keeping records. Every ignored request, every shortcut, every time I had to override a smart system to prevent a surge. I photographed equipment, dated emails, logged conversations. Something told me I would need proof. Evan Carter showed up in khakis and a polo, clutching a laptop, his hair gelled like he was heading to a frat party. "Excited to learn from you," he said, shaking my hand with a grip that felt rehearsed. "I have got automation ideas to streamline things." I handed him a hard hat and safety glasses. Grid first, ideas later. For 2 weeks, I walked him through the system substation layouts, emergency protocols, crew schedules, the quirks of every transformer. I showed him how to read the hum of a high-voltage line, how to spot a hairline crack in an insulator before it failed. But he did not get it. He took notes on processes but ignored the people. He did not ask about Denise's daughter in college, or Miguel, our best lineman, who had been with us 20 years despite arthritis in his knees. He did not know that the West substation is backup generator needed a manual reset after storms. On my last day, I overheard him with Nathan in the break room. "We can cut overnight maintenance shifts," Evan said. "The sensors will catch issues." Nathan nodded, his eyes gleaming. "Exactly the innovation we need." I called a quiet meeting with Denise, Miguel, Ray, and 2 other veterans, Carla and Javier, in the parking lot after hours. "They are gonna cut corners," I said, leaning against my truck. "Document everything, failures, delays, anything that smells wrong." Denise frowned, her arms crossed. "We cannot just ignore the new boss." "Do not," I said, "but keep records. If the grid starts failing, call me." I handed them my number on scraps of paper, each one feeling like a lifeline. They nodded, their faces grim but resolute. My last day. I cleared my locker, the metal door creaking like it knew what was happening. Evan was already at my desk, rearranging files, his laptop open to some dashboard I would never seen. "Any advice?" he asked, eyes on his screen. "Listen to the grid," I said. "It talks, if you know how. And trust your crew, they know more than any sensor." He nodded, not understanding, his fingers already tapping away. I handed Carla my keys and walked out. No cake, no speech, just a handshake from HR and a gate that locked behind me. 25 years ended in silence. 3 weeks later, Denise called. Her voice low, like she was hiding in a closet. "They are skipping transformer inspections," she said. "Said it is not in the budget." "Document it," I told her. "Note any flickers, any heat buildup." A week later, Miguel reported a deny parts order for a backup generator. "They told me to make do," he said. I logged every call, every cut, building a file on my laptop labeled River Valley. At 6 weeks, a minor outage hit a substation overload that left a neighborhood dark for 2 hours. No injuries, but a warning. Then a voltage spike in week 8 took out a factory is equipment. Week 9 brought a circuit failure that dimmed half the downtown. Denise called after each one. "Evan is blaming old equipment," she said. "Says you did not maintain it." My jaw tightened. That grid had run like a Swiss watch under my care. At 10 weeks, I could not sit still anymore. I drove to the plant during lunch and met Denise in the employee lot, staying in my truck to avoid cameras. "How bad is it?" I asked. She looked exhausted, her hard hat smudged with grease. "Bad. Hospitals are complaining about power dips. They fired Miguel last week, called him uncooperative. Evan is buddy from college. Some kid named Tyler is running maintenance. Now guy does not know a volt from a watt." "Anyone hurt?" I asked. My biggest fear. "Not yet," she said. "But a nurse got stuck in an elevator during a flicker last week." Evan wrote it off as a fluke, and they are pushing us to ignore warning lights to meet quotas. I made a call to the state utility board that afternoon. Spoke to an inspector named Karen Walsh, a no-nonsense woman I would met at a safety conference years ago. I listed the cuts, the skipped inspections, the risks to critical infrastructure like Springfield General Hospital. "We will do an unannounced audit within 2 weeks," she said, her voice sharp with concern. "Send me anything you have got." I emailed her my logs, anonymized, to protect Denise and the others. 3 days later, Denise called, her voice shaking. "They know you tipped the board, Marcus. Nathan is losing it. He has got us working overtime to clean up before the inspectors show." Then a legal letter arrived at my house, hand-delivered by a courier. River Valley accused me of interfering with operations and violating a non-disclosure agreement I would never signed. They threatened a lawsuit if I did not cease spreading false information. I called my lawyer, Tom Reed, a friend from high school who had gone into corporate law. He read the letter and laughed. "They are bluffing, Marcus. You have not shared proprietary data, just safety concerns. They cannot touch you, but they can make your life hell with legal fees if they want." "Can they stop the audit?" I asked. "No," he said. "Once the utility board is involved, it is out of their hands. But be careful. These types play dirty when cornered." I hung up, anger mixing with unease. They were scrambling to cover their tracks. But what happened after the audit? They would fix the bare minimum, pay a fine, and go back to cutting corners. The audit came and went. River Valley passed barely Dara. Karen Walsh called me afterward. "They fixed the obvious issues, Marcus, but their records are inconsistent. Several crew members seemed coached. We issued minor fines, but it will not change their behavior long term." I thanked her, frustrated, but not surprised. Companies like River Valley knew how to game the system, patch the holes, smile for the inspectors, then business as usual. That weekend, my doorbell rang. It was Miguel, looking nervous, holding a USB drive. "I should not be here," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "But you need to see this." He handed me the drive. Real maintenance logs, not the ones they showed the auditors. And emails between Nathan and Horizon Capital about cost-cutting. I invited him in, and we spent hours at my kitchen table going through the files. The picture was uglier than I would imagined. Horizon had a company-wide strategy to underfund maintenance, betting the grid could limp along until profits were locked in. One email from a Horizon exec was chilling. "Downtime is cheaper than over-investment. Insurance covers outages." Another showed Nathan approving. "Evan is planned to skip critical transformer upgrades with a note, 'Defer to next fiscal year.'" "There is more," Miguel said, pointing to a folder. "Evan is denying repairs on equipment that has been red-flagged for months. The West substation is transformer, is a time bomb. Why risk your job for this?" I asked. His face hardened. "Denise's brother works at Springfield General. Last outage delayed a surgery. They are playing with lives." "Marcus?" I nodded, my hands clenching. These were not just numbers on a parabout. They were patients, families, my crew. I called the meeting at Ray's house. The next day, neutral ground. Denise, Miguel, Carla, Javier, and 2 other veterans, Sam and Alicia, showed up. I laid out the evidence, logs, emails, photos of frayed cables and overheating relays. "What now?" Denise asked, her voice low. "Go to the media." "Not yet," I said. "We need leverage, something that hits their bottom line." "Like what?" Carla asked. "Proof they cannot ignore," I said. "Keep documenting every shortcut, every failure, every near miss. But be careful. They are watching." Ray leaned forward. "They will fire anyone they catch." "I know," I said. "That is why we are ghosts." 2 weeks, that is all I need. For the next 2 weeks, my crew became my eyes and ears. Denise sent photos of cracked insulators. Chuavia lobbed ignored warning lights. Sam recorded a conversation where Evan dismissed a voltage irregularity as with intolerance. I compiled everything, building a case that could bury River Valley. Meanwhile, I made 3 moves. First, I contacted Laura Hayes, director of operations at Springfield General Hospital, a major client. Over coffee at a diner, I showed her outage reports and photos of neglected equipment. These are your power dips, I said. They are getting worse, and they are not accidents. Laura's eyes narrowed. We cannot risk patient care. I will request a full audit of your supply reliability. Second, I sent Karen Walsh the new evidence, dates, times, photos, emails. This is enough for a federal review, she said. I am escalating it to the Public Service Commission. Third, I took a risk and emailed Evan asking to meet at a diner far from the plant. To my surprise, he agreed. He looked worn out, dark circles under his eyes, his polo wrinkled. The grid is a mess, he admitted over coffee. Equipment fails daily, corporate is pushing quotas, and I am drowning. They gutted the system, I said. Those inspections you cut? They were the backbone. He stared at his mug. Nathan says we cannot afford them. And how is that working out? I asked. Production is down. Clients are complaining, and you are one outage away from a disaster. He did not answer. Two things are coming, I told him. The hospital is auditing your supply. The utility board is digging deeper with federal backing. Document everything, every order Nathan denies, every risk you flag. Protect yourself. He paled. They will fire me. Maybe, I said. But you will sleep better, knowing you did not let a hospital go dark. I slid my card across the table. Think about it. The next day, the West substation is transformer blue. No injuries, but the county went dark for 6 hours. Schools closed, traffic lights out, hospital generators straining. My phone rang at dawn. It was Nathan. His voice tight. Marcus, we need you. The grid is down, and we cannot fix it. You fired Miguel, I said. He would have caught this. Nathan sighed impatient. Can we skip the lecture? We will pay you to consult. $400 an hour, I said. My team, Denise, Miguel, Ray, Carla, Javier, Sam, Alicia, full authority on repairs. And I want all maintenance records for the past 6 months. He hesitated, then agreed. Be here in an hour. I walked into chaos, crews idle, managers shouting, Nathan pacing like a caged animal. The transformer failure was textbook neglect. Skipped inspections, ignored warnings, cheap parts pushed past their limits. I gathered my team in the control room. We fix this, I said, but we do it right. Denise nodded, already pulling schematics. Miguel grabbed his tools, his limp barely noticeable. As we worked, I sent an email to Horizon-Is board, the Public Service Commission, and Laura at the hospital, detailing every cut that led to the outage, with evidence attached. Nathan caught me as I hit send. What the hell are you doing? He demanded, his face red. You cannot send that. Already, did I, said. Fix the grid, or not. It took 3 days to restore power, a job that would have been a 2-hour swap with proper maintenance. My team worked like the old days, hands steady, instincts sharp. The hospital suspended its contract, citing unacceptable reliability risks. The Public Service Commission launched a federal probe. Nathan was reassigned to Horizon-Is headquarters, a corporate exile. A new VP. Claire Donovan called me into her office on the 3rd day. Impressive work, Marcus, she said, leaning back in her chair. We have reviewed your documentation. It is thorough. I said nothing, waiting. We are overhauling maintenance and safety protocols across all facilities, she continued. And we want you as Director of Operations. Name your salary. I shook my head. That is the problem. Safety cannot be budgeted quarter by quarter. I will consult. $400 an hour, 3 days a week. I will rebuild the system I created, train your people, get the grid stable. But I am not your employee. Claire studied me, then nodded. Acceptable. I did not go back for the title or the money. I went back for Denise, Miguel, Ray, Carla, Javier, Sam, Alicia, the crew who deserve the safe grid. For the hospital patients, the school kids, the families who trusted us to keep the lights on. The next Monday, I walked onto the plant floor. The substations hummed smoother, the crew's faces less strained. I caught Denise's eye as she checked a relay. She gave a small nod, the kind that said more than words. The grid knew. Its caretaker was back. 2 weeks later, Evan texted me. I am documenting everything. Thanks for the push. I did not reply. He would made his choice, just like I would made mine. 6 months later, I stood in the control room watching the grid's vitals on a new monitoring system. I would designed one that balanced sensors with human instinct. River Valley had rehired Miguel and promoted Denise to supervisor. The federal probe fined Horizon millions and mandated a 5-year oversight plan. Springfield. General renewed its contract with strict reliability clauses Laura insisted on. I trained a new generation of technicians, teaching them to listen to the grid's hum, to trust their gut as much as their screens. One evening, Ray stopped by my house with a beer and a question. You ever think about going back full-time? I looked at the toolbox in my garage, still scarred but ready. No, I said. I am exactly where I belong. The grid was stable, my crew was safe, and Horizon had learned a hard lesson. You do not fire the person who keeps the lights on and expect the world to stay bright.